Welcome to our deep dive on navigating the J visa system, especially the risks of switching from J2 to J1 and the notorious immigrant intent trap under Section 214B. First, we will set the stage by explaining how J visas work and why timing matters. Next, we will unpack sponsor discretion, clarify the confusion around 212E, and examine why 214B can derail last-minute status swaps. Finally, we will explore safer alternatives and provide actionable steps you can take. Now let's begin with a quick roadmap of today's session. Here is our agenda. First, we will review the structure and limits of J visas. Then, we will examine the feasibility of switching from J2 to J1 and the critical role sponsors play. After that, we will clarify the difference between 212E and 214B. Next, we will focus on the immigrant intent trap and how it affects last-minute applications. Finally, we will suggest safer pathways, summarize key takeaways, and test your knowledge with quick quizzes. With that, let's transition to a brief but important disclaimer. Before we proceed, please note this content is educational and not legal advice. Immigration outcomes depend on individual facts and evolving policies, so you should consult a licensed immigration attorney about your specific situation. With that in mind, let's move into a quick overview of how J visas work and why program time limits matter. The J visa category exists to promote cultural and educational exchange. It is time-limited, often capped at 4 or 5 years depending on the specific program category. For example, research scholars and teachers have specified maximum durations established by regulation and program policy. The purpose is strictly temporary, aimed at exchange, not permanent residence. Therefore, when the cap approaches, any attempt to extend time through status changes must align with the exchange mission. Now, let's discuss the J2 to J1 switch and what it truly involves. Switching from J2 to J1 is technically possible, but it is not a rollover. It requires a completely new J1 application, a new sponsor, and a new DS-2019 for a qualifying program category, such as moving from spouse to teacher or researcher. Critically, this must be timed well. Attempting the change near the program's maximum duration increases scrutiny. The government may view late switches as attempts to extend stay beyond the intended temporary purpose. Also, holding J2 provides no preference for a primary J1 role. You must compete on the merits, as any new applicant would. Next, we will look at the power and discretion of the sponsor, which is often decisive. This mind map separates 212E from 214B. On the 212E side, there is a 2-year home residency requirement tied to certain program categories, skills lists, or government funding. It can bar H visas, L visas, and permanent residency until it is either fulfilled or waived. While important, 212E is often not the main obstacle when applying for a new J1. On the 214B side, the issue is demonstrating non-immigrant intent. After 4 to 5 years in the United States, adjudicators may suspect that the applicant intends to remain longer than a temporary program would allow. This makes 214B a frequent and immediate cause of denial for late J2 to J1 switches, unless strong ties abroad and a clear exchange purpose are convincingly documented. With this distinction in mind, let's examine sponsor discretion. Sponsors, such as universities or schools, exercise broad discretion. They must maintain compliance and are under no obligation to facilitate a J2 to J1 switch. In many cases, sponsors decline such requests for policy reasons or to avoid the appearance of helping applicants bypass maximum program durations. These decisions are final, do not require explanation, and cannot be appealed. Therefore, early alignment with the sponsor's mission and a genuine exchange rationale become essential. Now let's unpack why 214B becomes the central risk in late-stage applications. Section 214B presumes immigrant intent unless the applicant proves otherwise. After a prolonged stay of 4 or 5 years, a last-minute J2 to J1 switch can appear to adjudicators as a strategy to bypass time limits. This perception often leads to denials under 214B. Such denials may also influence how future applications are viewed, given the record of refusal. To mitigate risk, applicants must present substantial evidence of strong ties abroad, a compelling temporary purpose, and a program aligned with genuine exchange. With that risk clarified, let's test your understanding with a short quiz. Quiz time. The question is, which factor most commonly jeopardizes a late J2 to J1 switch near the 4 to 5 year mark? The options are A, the 212E home residency requirement, B, lack of sponsor discretion, C, 214, B, immigrant intent concerns, and D, not having had J2 work authorization. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C, 214B, immigrant intent concerns. Although the 212E requirement is important for eligibility for H visas, L visas, or permanent residency, it is not typically the deciding factor in a new J1 application. Instead, late-stage applications tend to fail because they cannot overcome the presumption of immigrant intent under 214B. Next, let's explore safer alternatives when the J cap is approaching. When caps approach, starting early is essential. Begin planning 6 to 12 months in advance to build a strong, temporary exchange narrative. Consider whether you qualify for dual intent categories like H1B or L1, or extraordinary ability categories such as O1, which may better align with long-term goals. Alternatively, some applicants choose non-J options like F1 study, while recognizing that 214B still applies and intent must be addressed. Regardless of path, strengthen ties abroad through employment commitments, property, family, or academic obligations, and document everything: program purpose, expected outcomes, funding, and a concrete plan to return. Now, let's compare the risks of a late J2 to J1 swap with a strategic shift to alternative pathways. On the left, a late J2 to J1 swap carries elevated 214B risk, depends entirely on sponsor willingness, and can be perceived as a tactic to restart the clock. These cases are unpredictable, and adverse decisions are often not appealable. On the right, a strategic alternative path, such as pursuing a dual intent category where eligible, may provide a more reliable route aligned with long-term objectives. It also allows time to assemble stronger documentation and coordinate employer or institutional support. With this comparison in mind, let's consolidate the key points you should remember. Here are the key takeaways. First, the J visa program is temporary by design, and adjudicators expect a clear, time-limited purpose. Second, sponsors exercise absolute discretion and can decline without appeal. Third, 214B, not 212E, is the main near-term risk for late J2 to J1 switches. Fourth, strong ties abroad and a genuine, temporary exchange purpose are critical to demonstrate. Finally, consider alternative pathways early, including dual intent categories, if eligible. To reinforce this, let's wrap up with a concise summary. As you approach program caps, evaluate your timeline and risk profile. Decide early whether a switch aligns with a genuine exchange purpose or whether a pivot to another category better serves your long-term goals. Build your evidentiary record methodically and ensure that your next steps align with both compliance and strategy. Finally, let's summarize and close with a call to action. In summary, switching from J2 to J1 is technically possible, but becomes risky when attempted late in the program. Sponsor discretion is decisive and can end the effort at the outset. The most common reason for denial in these scenarios is 214B, not 212E. While 212E is important for future immigration options, it typically does not control the outcome of a new J1 application. Therefore, early planning and consideration of alternative or dual intent categories can be the safer approach. Now, let's conclude with our final message. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like the video, share it with others who might benefit, and subscribe for more practical immigration insights. In the comments, tell us your biggest question about timing, sponsor strategy, or handling 214B. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and continuing the conversation.